going on, guys? Today we're going to be mounting the wide body for real and getting it ready for paint. Alright guys, I'm really excited. I now have everything here to mount my new wide body. I just went and picked up the mounts today. They look really good, exactly as I expected. The machining went great, there was no issues. I've also got all of my hardware in. Here are the adhesive mount studs that will be mounting to the new fenders. I've also got just some regular lock nuts that will be going onto the studs. These are the rivet nuts. These will be pressed into the body of the car. And then these are just some button head socket cap screws that are going to be securing the mount to the car. And the last thing I'll need to do to the mounts is going to be drilling the holes in each of the flanges. That should be really easy. I'm just going to measure the center, mark it, and drill it. This is UHMW plastic. I don't think I'll have any issue drilling. And then once I get all of the holes drilled, I can start to mock up exactly where these adhesive mount studs are going to go on the new fenders. I'll be putting the studs in the mounts so that I can line it up and mark exactly where I need to be adhering these to the new fender. And then after that, I can do the same thing on the body side. So then I'll need to be marking the body of the car to where I need to drill and then insert the rivet nuts. And then once I get everything mounted up and it looks just the way I want, then I'll start prepping the new fenders for paint. I just got done sanding both fenders for paint, and I decided to do that before adhering anything onto the fender just because it was a little easier to work with without the studs and I didn't want to risk damaging them by doing the sanding after. So now that the sanding's done, I'm going to get ready to adhere the studs on, and I'll mark at each location where the studs are going to go so that that's where I can sand off all the paint, because the adhesive is going to work a lot better bonding to the steel itself instead of the paint that's on the back of these. So I'll mark all locations where I need to sand, then I can sand all the paint off, and then once I do that, I can get the studs glued onto the fenders. I've got all the studs on now and it went really smoothly. I first started by putting a little bit of adhesive under each stud, and then after that had a little time to dry, I went back and added a good amount over top so it went through all those holes, and then a nice little bead in the corner between the flange and the sheet metal of the quarters. Next up, I'll be attaching the mounts to each quarter and then holding it up to the car so I can figure out exactly where the mounts need to go on the car, and then that will tell me where I need to drill the holes to then install the rivnuts. I was thinking I might need to do this, and I just confirmed it once I had the new quarters mounted up. I am gonna have to trim out the stock body a little bit in order to mount the gas cap onto the new quarter. So I'll just do that quick first. I'll try to use the jigsaw so that I don't make any sparks because I am right next to the gas filler neck. Then I can move on to drilling and inserting the rivnuts. Here's one of the scrap pieces that I cut off the new fenders. So I'm gonna use this to test out the rivnuts. Now with my second attempt, I got the rivnut seated exactly how I want it. This bottom portion is flared out, and that's what holds it tight against the sheet metal. My first try was here, and I had the tool set in such a way that the handle was actually open too wide, and because these are stainless, they actually take a lot of force to install. So I closed that to about halfway closed before it actually started to engage and pull the rivnut, and that made it a lot easier for me to get a good grip on it to pull it totally flush like it should. So now that I have that set up correctly, now I can move on to the car. All right guys, so I got all my painting done. As you saw, I used a makeshift paint booth that was mostly to contain all of the overspray and then also to heat it up a little bit. It's a little cold here, it's still winter time. My garage was about 50 degrees, so I was able to put a little bit of heat into that booth, and I got it up to about 70 degrees before I started to paint. And then between coats, I kept the heater on to keep the temperature up. And I am pretty pleased with how they came out, considering I'm definitely not a professional painter and I was using just spray cans. It was real paint that I ordered online, but they come in spray cans. The only issue I had with them is I think the spray pattern was a little too wide, and before I noticed it, it actually dripped onto the can itself, and then it dripped into the paint. And you can see right here and right here, there might be a couple other spots. So that was in the base coat. Once I was aware of it, I made sure I kept wiping the can so that it didn't happen again. So that was the only real problem. I almost ran out of paint, but thankfully it looks like I got full coverage on these. The clear coat went pretty well. I did one kind of medium coat followed by 2 heavy coats. And from experience in the past, I never seem to put enough clear coat on. So now I make sure with those heavy coats, I go really slow and put a lot of clear on. And I didn't really get any drips or sags from too much clear. So it seems like I did kind of get the right amount on there. And just feeling it right now, it's pretty glossy. And it really seems like I'll be able to now wet sand it and then polish it to get it really a nice shine. You can see there's definitely orange peel in here, but you can tell there's a glossy finish. So I think I will be able to get these looking pretty nice and match the rest of the car. Unfortunately, that's going to be it for today. I know everyone really wants to see what this final product's going to look like, myself included. But it's been a lot of work to get to this point, and I wanted to get another update out because it's been about 2 weeks since my last video. I am really happy with how the mounts came out. The only thing I'm not completely sure about yet is this top mount. It mounted up great and the curve matched, but it actually sits at a pretty steep angle there, you can see. I knew it was going to be at some angle, but it ended up being a pretty steep angle. So I'm not really sure how that's going to look once I have the fenders on and all the tape off with the paint and everything else. I'll definitely be running it like this for now, but in the future I could change that top mount, maybe make it a little bit more flat or even at an up angle. But we'll see, maybe it'll look totally fine once I have the painted panels on there. So next time I'll just need to sand and polish the new paint, and then I can get everything back on the car and we will see the final look.